This time on Werner's Whirligigs, we're going to look at 4 different methods to try to repair the dreaded folding mirror jinx that occurs on BMW E92 3 Series Coupes. So hold on tight, because this one's going to be fun, not fun. Do your mirrors on your E92 do anything like this? It's still running. It only shuts off when it times out. And then when I open it up, it probably won't line up in the correct spot again. Yeah, that's frustrating. We're going to try to fix this. Here's the 4 things we're going to try. The first one is done from the luxury of the driver's seat and takes 30 seconds. The second requires taking off the glass from the mirror and doing a little more disassembly and some cleaning. The third is where it gets a little more difficult. We're actually going to be drilling holes in the mirror in the attempt to free up an alignment plunger. And the last one is sincerely total disassembly and then reassembly of the mirror. It is a little bit complicated.
I want you all to remember that I'm just another yokel who is not educated nor a professional in what I'm doing here, and it's possible that if you rely on this video, you, your project, or the both of you might end up as a smoldering hunk of hammered dog shit. Please use common sense, be careful, and always protect your ears, eyes, face, body, and hands when doing this type of work. With that, let's keep on trucking. This video may contain peanuts.
Hey everybody, and willkommen or bienvenida to Werner's Whirligigs. Or welcome back if you've been here before. I'm Werner, and I can't add anything more to what's already been said in the intro. So let's jump in. The first thing that we can try, which is completely non-invasive, is to reset the folding mirrors. And it's a simple process. We're going to fold in the mirrors first with the power folding mirror button, and then we're going to manually, by hand, push the mirror back out a little bit so it's in the breakaway position. And then we're going to let the power mirrors fold out. Once it stops, we're going to let it fold back in again with the power folding mirror function, and it should, if everything were to go correctly, then make a noise and snap into the correct place. And then when we fold it back out again, it should end up in the correct location. So let's give that a go. We're going to bring them in first. Okay, now we're going to push it out a little bit. Now it's in the breakaway position. Now we're going to fold it back out, and it should go past where it's supposed to, which it did. And now we fold it back in again, and it should go further and snap into place. All right, so let's see what happens now. When we fold it back out, it should go to the right place. That does seem to be the right place. That actually looks good. And it's returning back to the correct location. Well, this is pretty encouraging, and I'm probably just going to see how it goes over the next few days. And if it doesn't go out of whack again, then we'll wind up the video there. Otherwise, I have a couple other things I might try. The first thing we're going to need to do for everything is get this cover off, and it's just a exercise and wiggle and getting it off. This cover's been off a few times from various things, and so it's kind of broken up anyway. It comes off pretty easily, probably too easily. And the next step we need to take for this part of the work is to take this mirror out, and I think it should just pop out. Yeah, it just kind of pops out of there. Now I've got the mirror laying off to the side, and there's a single T10 Torx screw that's here in the center. Okay. And this is actually the 6-pin plug is right here, and that's what we need to clean up. And you can see where it plugs into right down there, right there. And what we want to do is we want to get in here and clean these pins with some sandpaper or something abrasive to clean them up. And so we need to get this back cap off. There are 3 clips, 1, 2, 3, every 120 degrees. Okay, I got one of them to break free. This one actually was broke. Okay, they all 3 broke free. And so now we have these pins here exposed. Now these look clean, but you know what, it can be deceptive. So just take your whatever little piece of sandpaper you have, I don't know if I mentioned this in another video, but my friend has a Jaguar that we were working on, and new battery, recently connected to the electrical system, and it was getting no power. And so we started troubleshooting. We got out the multimeter and started following the current. And the connectors on the batteries were working, but then at the very next step, which was only a foot away, the power was not making it through that connector. And I mean, it looked brand new. It was all shiny and clamped together, but for some reason power wasn't making it through. So I guess the moral of the story is, just because a connection looks good doesn't mean that it is good. And of course too, see, I bent this one a little bit. See if you can see that. Just make sure if you keep them straight. If you don't want it to bend, because then when you go back to plug it in, it's not gonna go back in, and it's gonna bend and break, and then you'll be screwed. We have these cleaned. Now let's put this cap back on in the same rotation. So hole over this, over the pins, and then we'll push it on. Okay, I've got some dielectric grease here, and I'm going to use a Q-tip just to feed some in over these pins. And you know, it's probably too much, but it doesn't hurt anything. So that's quite a bit, but it's, like I said, it's not going to hurt anything. If anything, it'll keep water from going in there. And now that this is cleaned and greased up, we're going to put it back in, and what you want to do is align the plug here with the female receptacle, plug receptacle, and it just clicks into place. And now we're going to put the T10 screw back in the center. And in pulling this out, it's like a snap fit. You just have to wiggle it out a little bit. Okay, that's tight.
And then the last thing is just to put the mirror back in place. And you just have to kind of do it. I don't know that there's anything that I could tell you. It just sort of happens. So there we go. Now I'm going to give it a try again and see what happens. Okay, that didn't work. What happens when we go out? It did go back to the right spot. Well, no, it did not. I can see it's not the right spot. This is Werner from the future again. I, throughout this process, have been cleaning these different little contacts or connectors at various stages, and I found that, and it makes sense now, what those connectors take care of is the movement of the mirror motors up, down, left, right. Later, I was playing around with the driver's side mirror on this car because it wouldn't go left or right, and after cleaning the contacts on those pins, the 8-pin connector, it started working again. So I don't know that cleaning these connectors does anything for the folding mirror. I read that it had repaired 2 different cars, and perhaps that's the case, but so far my experience shows that those 8 pins are related only to the up, down, left, right movement of the mirror motors themselves. As I was doing my research, I kept finding reference to this magical spring-loaded plunger, and it causes the mirror to stop in the exactly perfect position for driving. This piston evidently gets seized up in its bore due to corrosion, so if we can disassemble the mirror and free up that piston, we'll live happily ever after. And then I read another article and found more information about a guy who figured out where he could drill a hole and just put WD-40 into that hole, which in turn would help him free up that piston, and he lived happily ever after. So that's what we're going to try now. We're out here again, and that doesn't mean that the mirror worked. I let it sit overnight, and then the next day I went out to try it, and the same dang thing was happening. So we're going to try the last trick I know, and that's from researching the web and YouTube, and that's going to be to drill a hole down here, and that we're going to use that hole to insert some lubricant and try to move a little plunger in there. Evidently that plunger has a spring, and that plunger sometimes can get stuck, and that doesn't allow that plunger to move into the right place and let the mirror know that it should stop moving. We'll back out for a second now so you can see things a little bit better. So I'm going to take a punch right here. This is a spring-loaded punch. I'm going to make a little divot here. It's approximately halfway between here, and that's just to glide my drill bit so it doesn't go wandering. From what I've read, you don't want to drill too far, maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, and I've heard various things. One person said through a single piece of metal, and another said you were actually going through 2 pieces of metal. So I'll be gentle here, and let's see what we can do. Oh, it's really soft. I am not pushing hard at all. So what do we have? I think I probably missed the hole. We're aiming for a very small area, I now realize. I watched a video about how to take this whole thing apart, and after watching it 4 or 5 times, I was able to figure out where this piece is that we need to get to. And it's more like
Let's say it's there, hopefully. So we're going to try drilling over there instead. I think I'm going to try a larger drill, but to go really shallow. I think we need to open it up more so we can see, and then we'll figure out where that pin is. I have another update for you. I missed. The second hole was over here. This one was the first hole. This over here was the second hole. And then I used the drill to cut out what was left in between them. And you can see that's where we wanted to be, right in between. I can't believe I missed them both times so perfectly. What you're seeing there, that little circle or semicircle arc, is the end of the spring. That little piston or a little button that we're looking for then sits down in the middle of this hole. So this is Werner from the future, and what I want to do here is quickly show you what you're aiming for when you're drilling. So we can see in this that the spring is underneath this cover, and that's what we were aiming for. But when we pull this off, it exposes the folding mirror motor. This is where the vertical pin goes, that the mirror rotates around. And here again is this hole. And the whole purpose here is to free up this plunger. I don't know if this thing is freed up or not yet, but it hasn't solved my problem. The mirror seems to be finding its way back to the open position quite easily now, at least. But it still is not stopping when it folds up and closes. It just wants to keep running until it times out. So here's what I'm left with. And you can see it just running and running and running till it times out. It went to the right position. So I wonder if I have two problems. Maybe there is a problem that is partially solved, where it goes out and gets into the right position, the fold out position, but in the fold in position, maybe there's a different issue. I don't know. Well, the fact that we're out here again means that these prior 3 mirror fixes didn't work. So we're going to try the last one, which is to actually disassemble the mirror and try to free up that piston. So I'm going to zoom in on the mirror, because before we can actually work on it, we need to remove the mirror from the car. Now we have a 2009 328i, and at some point the mirror removal changed. With this car it's fairly easy. We remove this speaker here, and there is 2 clips, one on top and one on the bottom. The top one pulls out, and then you slide the whole mirror up to release it from the second piece. First we want to pull this out, and then we just slide it up and let it drop here. We have these 2 screws here that hold in the mirror, but there's a third one, so you need to pry this up, and you may need to just wiggle the door panel a little bit to get it out. And then we have a third screw under here, and I believe they're all T30. Let's see. Yes, they are. So it's a T30 Torx head. And if you don't have Torx heads already, I would invest in a set that has the little security hole in it. It's a regular Torx head, except that it has the security holes. And so, I don't run into them that often, but it's nice to have it just in case. And it will work in any Torx head anyway, so you don't need to have 2 sets, one for Torx and one for security Torx.
This one does not have security Torx bolts. That may not be the official name for them, by the way. It's just what I call them. Okay, now we can see that the mirror is already starting to come off. So let me stand up so I can catch it. And now I'm holding the mirror in place on the door. And before you let it lean down, it's not going to fall because it's held in place by the wire still. But I'm just going to put a soft cloth under here. All we need to do is release the wire here. There's two little clips in here that you can grab with your finger. It's really easy to pull this out. And now I'm in the workshop at the bench. First we're going to pull out the mirror. I think we used a screwdriver to start prying it a little bit. There we go. That comes out rather easily. After you remove the mirror glass from the mirror assembly, you still need to disconnect the wires from this plug here, and there are wires for both the auto dimming and the heated mirror functions. So there are small clasps underneath that prevent you from unplugging these two pieces. So what you first need to do is release the plug from the back of the mirror, and in order to do that, you take a small screwdriver, very small, and you go under the center of this end and you press, and it pops the mirror out of a plug. And here you can see, here's the hole. Here's the hole where it fits in, and here's the little male side of that plugs in. And then once you do that, all you have to do is pull these two apart, and they're separated. I'm not sure if this next step is necessary for what we want to do, but I'm going to do what we did before when we were down in here cleaning those connectors, and that is just to pull the piece off the tilting part of the motor, and you unscrew the T10 Torx 10 in the middle, and then it just unplugs. Now, usually the motor for changing the angle of the mirrors just pops out pretty easily. You just pull it out, but I've only worked on a couple of these, so if you find that you're having issues on the back side, there are actually 3 places where you can pop it free. Here, here, and here. And so what you just want to do is go in like this, and you'll see the metal hook is on this side and the black plastic, which is the motor assembly, is on this side. So you just go in there and kind of push it out, and it falls right out. You can do it in any one of those 3. Our next step is to remove this plastic here. Let's undo the Torx screws first, because nothing's going to move without that. One, 2, and 3, and we'll set these apart in one of these. If you don't have those, go to Harbor Freight and grab one for $2.99 or $4.99. Sometimes they go on sale for cheaper. They are a must-have. Okay, so now we'll come back to these clips and just see what happens. So what I did was I put a screwdriver through there just to pry a little bit, and that helped these clips get up and over. Let's try it again. Well, that one's broken, and this one, so we'll just try prying again. There we go, that popped free. 2 more here on the end. Okay. Now, we got it. But let's just remember that this has to go through here, or else we'd be damned forever. And now you can see this is where we drilled in the last segment, where that pin was. And when we take this apart, we'll be able to see under this cover and attempt to free up that pin that's inside of there. Now what we're interested in doing is removing this stock here. We have to do that before we can remove this metal case. And this is one end of it, and you can see this spring here. And that's what we're fighting again when we move this thing. It's the pressure from this spring, or the force from that spring. And on the other side we can't see it, but we have this piece here. See, you can see it's a different color, and it actually slides out like that, and now it exposes the bottom. We're going to have to remove this without damaging wires. We want to keep the spring and everything else can go. I think it'll probably be easier if we just go ahead and disconnect this wire now, get it out of the hole, because we are going to have to cut into this thing to remove it. So looking at the other end of this, it comes up, the connector lives here, goes into here, but I'm pretty sure it unplugs. There's a little clip right here that we need to push down on. Okay, now this comes out, and then we need to lift up this tab. There we go. So now that we have this wire free, we should be able to just feed it through the hole under here and through the other side and get it out of the way for when we do our cutting. Yes, and sure enough, that worked just fine. So what to do with this pin here? I've seen people cut it like this and then work it around. I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drill here, and hopefully that'll cause this head to pop off, and then everything should open up. Let's give it a shot. I'm just going to come at it with a hand drill and see what happens. This is future Werner again, coming back to talk to you about this spring here and the pin. Now I've already cut it out. You can see it's sitting in there. But what you want to do, and what I did not do, is measure the distance before tearing this apart between this plate and the top of the spring, because what we want to do when we put this all back together is put the spring back to the same rate of compression. So before you even start to cut out the pin with the Dremel, stop and take this measurement. That measurement is going to look something like this. You want the distance from the base, where the base of the spring sits, up to the top of the spring. And from what I recall, it should be about 15 millimeters. And remember, when you are taking this apart, this spring is under compression. So that distance will change once you cut off the top of the pin. So that's why you want to take this measurement before you cut off the pin. Yeah, that's just not working. Maybe a Dremel tool with a carbide bit. Alright, back with a carbide bit on the Dremel tool. There we go. Plastic washer, spring, and this piece comes out. I think now the party starts. Yeah, Houston, we may have a problem. Okay, we got this piece of broken metal in here. I don't immediately see where it came from. That doesn't make me feel better. I'm going to clean things up and then we'll do a little exploring. Things cleaned up pretty nicely. Here's where we were looking before, where I found that broken piece down in here. just to orient yourself again, here's where we drilled the hole. So down here is where that piston comes out. I can actually see it, but I don't know. See, I still don't understand what it does. I'm going to have to take that apart and look. But that wasn't the problem. Here's the problem. This is the other part. This sits like this, roughly. Maybe like this. The stop broke off. So there's a right here. You see that there's a hole, and yeah, this is that metal piece that I found in there was the stop. So that is probably why the mirror was not lining up correctly when it was swinging in. It just kept wanting to go and go and go rather than stop. Well, even though we found the likely problem, I'm still dying to know if this little piston is stuck or not. Here's that piston. Oh, and it's doing just fine. Look at it. No problems at all. And I actually almost forgot to take this piece out. Huh. Okay. Well, there's the backside of my horrible hole. And here's the motor, folding window motor under here. And you can see all the debris that's in here from my drilling adventure. You know, maybe it could get into the motor. I'm not sure, but maybe it'll make you think twice about drilling holes in there. I thought about this overnight, and I realize now that there's damage on both pieces, though I didn't notice that before. So again, right here, we're missing this block that helps stop the rotation of the mirror mechanism. But in addition to that, notice how sharp this stop is over here. And this is really the one that's not used very much, only if you're to stop your mirror from opening all the way up and coming around 360 and going through your windshield in the front. But this ramp here, or this block here, is quite worn and has a ramp on it. So if we go to where the piece mates up, and let me pull this off so you can get a better view, you can see up here that this piece also has significant wear, and it has a ramp there too. And I believe that these two pieces sliding by one another on this ramp is what is allowing the mirror to go in further towards the passenger window than it normally would in a car. So it's, instead of stopping at the appropriate point, the mechanism is both sides are walking up this ramp and then continue to try to close. This makes my choice a little bit easier. I was contemplating whether I could machine something, and probably could, but I feel like that's just a little bit too much time spent on something like this when I have so many other projects. So I'm going to buy a replacement used mirror. A couple things to note if you're ever in this situation: there are different numbers of pins that connect into the door. This car has a 3-pin. While I've been looking for used ones, I've seen 5-pin as well. And then secondly, this piece here most often is in a matte black finish, but of course we have the gloss black finish, which is not readily available. I've only seen one for sale on eBay, for example, that would work, even though a new mirror is on the way. Just for sport, I'm going to try to see if there's a way to repair this. I'm first going to do it with some piece of plastic, something that I 3D print, we'll see if I convert it over to steel or if I just stick with it in plastic, and because I'm not going to most likely use this on the car anyway. I filed down where the break occurred, and right here is where the block was sitting as a stop to stop the mirror from spinning as it moves inward. I made a replacement cylinder with the block printed into it, and then I pushed this down into here. Unfortunately, I took my measurement from the outside of this steel to the edge, and I forgot about the inside part of it, so I need to reprint this so that it comes all the way out to the edge of the metal here, to the corner. As a reminder, the whole purpose for taking this all apart is to try to free up this plunger here. And this plunger is used to stop the mirror as it's folding out, I believe, and stop it in the correct location. So we've ascertained that this plunger is fine. It was never bound up, and that it was a different problem, a break in stopped for when it's closing, that was causing the problem. So at this point, if you have a stuck plunger, then it's your job to get this thing out of here using WD-40 or some other kind of de-ruster and lubricant, and then clean out this bore, perhaps with a very tiny wire brush, or maybe a little tiny roll of sandpaper, just something to clean up the surface. And at the same time, you also are going to want to clean up the outside of this cylinder, this piston here. And while you're at it, you might as well fish out that spring and clean it up as well. Now, I don't have that problem, so I'm going to skip over that, and now we can start to reassemble the mirror here. And while we're in here, probably not a bad idea to take this little gear out. So this thing has a screw and a regular gear, and whoops, I didn't know that was going to happen. Anyway, what I was going to say is it's probably not a bad idea to put a little bit of grease on these parts. So both on that gear and on the screw, and then that grease will also transfer to the neighboring parts. I'm using Super Lube multi-purpose synthetic grease. Okay, and then you want to drop this thing back in here. Then we can start closing it up. Now it clicks into place via these two clips on the side, but we'll eventually screw it in. Why don't we do that actually now? And this uses those 4 T10 screws. And they actually don't screw this plastic cap on. What they do is screw this whole assembly back into the mirror bracket. So drop that down in there. Make sure that the wires go into this little recess here. Then grab your T10 and screw this stuff in. Okay, once those are all screwed in, we're going to drop this piece back on. And of course, make sure that your piston is still in place, the spring-loaded piston. And then we're going to line this up with the mirror so that this is sitting in the open position. I mean, where the mirror is out as you would normally be driving. Now recall, we dremeled out the original pin that was in here, and we no longer have it. It's damaged beyond use. So what I've got a suggestion that I saw elsewhere, but I think it's a good one, and that is to go online and buy a 12mm hollow bolt. And these are, I think, used for plumbing for some reason, but I'll put a link below. But then what you can do is slide this through, and I'm not going to get to the wiring yet. So slide that through. Put on the spring. Put on the plastic washer. And finally, put on a nut. And now that we've got the nut on there, we can measure the distance from the base to the top of the spring, and I'm at 14.5. Again, I think it's 15. I'm not 100% sure. But you can see even just a little turn makes a difference. That's good enough. And then we can lock it in with this second nut. After you have these two nuts on there, just crank them together a little bit. And now they should be stationary. And then just go back and take another measurement. Thankfully, there's a fair amount of room right here because where it sits between the front and rear covers on the mirror. So this was not going to get in the way of anything. If you should run into problems, another way that you can go after it would be this bolt is 12 by 175. You could take a different pitch 17 millimeter nut and jam it on there, and it'll essentially strip the threads, but they'll lock together, and that will only take up the width of one nut. Or you could even go with a half-sized nut and do the same to reduce the height of this piece here. But again, I don't believe it's going to get in the way. We do run into one problem though. This wire and plug are supposed to go through here, and there's not enough room inside of that hole. Now I checked and the width of this plug is large enough that you cannot drill out the center of this bolt. If you do, it won't leave any meat for the threads and it won't function correctly. So what you will most likely have to do is cut these wires, stick the wire through, and reconnect or resolder, however you like to do it. I prefer mechanical, like butt joints over soldering, but reconnect them on the other side. But another thing you could do is you could take the bolt and you could use some kind of a tool, a hacksaw, a Dremel tool with a carbide bit, a vertical mill, and you could cut a groove all the way through. So then that would be, let's call it 3 millimeters or about 1/8 of an inch wide, so that you could then tuck the wires through this way before installing the bolt into the hole. I'm going in a different direction completely because my problems are slightly larger and different than what this proposed solution can deliver. Now for my mirror, I'm going to do something a little bit different than using the 12 millimeter bolt, and that's because the stop block is missing on mine. So this is a part that I designed in CAD. It's a 12 millimeter diameter cylinder solid with threads, 0.125 threads at either end. It's got a block here. This block is going to replace the one that is missing in the mirror. And then also I've cut a groove. It's a 3 millimeter groove and a 5 millimeter hole, and that's to house the wiring loom from the mirror itself. The plug here is just too large to fit through just about anything. The only way it's possible to cram that plug through the middle is if you use the stock pin, which is just sheet metal, and it's very thin. So we don't have that here. So we'll start by loading up the various pieces on the on the wire loom to keep everything in order. We're going to need 2 nuts so that they can lock together. Then we need a spring. Then we need a washer. Actually, let's put the washer before the spring. All right, and then this is going to go through the hole where the pin will ultimately end up being. Now we're going to install this pin onto the wiring loom. Oops, and the block goes closer to the bottom. All right, and then pull it a little bit tight here, and then we will start by putting the plug through the base, and then we're going to install the block, the stopping block, into this groove here. And then flipping it over, we're going to take a plastic nut that I made and thread it on. We want to fasten the nut until it's flush with the bottom of the pin. So now the pin is connected and in a stable position in the bottom piece of the mirror, and now we're going to install it into the top. So it's already up in here. It already was before. And then we're just going to get these nuts on here that will hold the pin in place from the top. Now that we've got this all back together, the next thing to do is to install the black plastic back on, and this just fits through. Probably shouldn't use just so casually, but you line up. There's a post here that lines up, and we've got tabs all the way around here, here, and here, and you just get it all lined up and pull it into place. And then there's also 3 screws, and these are our favorite Torx 10. Before we go any longer, let's just see how this works now. See, the stop is there now, so it can come up here and then it stops. Same with this way, it goes this far and then it stops. Now that's the original stop that's still in place. But now with the stop that's included in the new pin, it can't go past here. But we'll see how that works in actual practice. And even though I did clean these pins just a couple of weeks ago, I cleaned them again and I added some dielectric grease again, and I'm going to push this into place. And then we'll put in and tighten up the T10 screw in the center, just like we did before. Now it's time to install the mirror glass back into the assembly. And again, we've got these wires here for either dimming or heated mirrors or both. And you need to plug these together while they're still free. And they can only go in one way, so that's the way. But if you try to go in the other way, it'll stop here at the red. So turn it around and plug it in. And then you'll recall that there's a male plug on the bottom of this part here, and then there's a female hole on the back of the mirror glass. So you want to line it up like so, and then plug that into the back of the mirror glass. And then finally, and there's not really any magic to this, you just gotta kind of get this thing in here and
push it in and it snaps into place every time. We are getting down to brass tacks finally. One of these last things we need to do is put the plug back into this receptacle and mount this receptacle into this plate here. And this is where the mirror will be electrically connected to the wire coming out of the car door. So we have this plug here. Let me zoom in on it. This plug has two different sides. On this side it has this little nib here, and on the other one it has one of these round timestamps that they put in moldings. So have the nib facing up, and then you want to take the connector and look through it, and you can see one side has hole all the way through and the other side does not. So you want to line up the pins with the hole all the way through, and also you want that nib to be facing up towards the release latch. And then we push it in together, and it should grab there. Okay, we're grabbed. And then the last step you want to take is you want to take these 3 pins. There's a square here. The side with the 3 pins should face in the forward direction of the car. So that will be in this direction. We just put it in and it's locked in place. The last thing I believe we need to do is just put this little cover back on, and it just slides into place here. There we go. All right, this is it. We are close to the end. This mirror here is the new mirror, well, the new used mirror, and I put the green cover on it, expecting that we will use this one permanently, which of course means we probably won't. And then here is the one that I repaired and gave the whirligig special. So I'm going to mount these up and see what happens. First I'm going to put on the one that I rebuilt, and then we'll do the one from the used parts lot. As before, we're going to use a soft cloth on the side of the car door. And the first thing we need to do is plug this one in. 3 wires to 3 pins. And then just need to get one of these started. And let's open the door for that. Do you see what just happened? Bang thing. Okay, this is enough for now. Okay, let's see what happens. I just left it in that position. I'm going to walk around the car, open the driver's side door, see if anything happens there. No. So why don't we go through the reset process? Okay, now it's all the way in. It's not running anymore. That's makes me happy. And it folded to the right position. I feel like it's starting to rotate again. Nope, nope, and nope. It's not working. Something's not right. That's okay, because we have another one. Here's the other mirror, the replacement used mirror. I'm just going to start filming so you guys can feel my sadness if it doesn't work, or my elation if it does. Okay. That seemed to work. Yeah. All right, up, down, left, right. Okay, here comes up, down, left. Oh my goodness. I think I'm done. Man, I want to drop some F-bombs right now, but I won't. Oh, this is so fantastic. That's an F-bomb. This is so fantastic. I'm stoked. So once again, I'm putting in the 3 bolts that hold everything in place. All right, and then recall that there's 2 tabs here. And we get the first one started, push this guy down, and then we push back into the second tab, and then finally we get this thing back here. And it'll also seat itself better once the door is closed. Let's close the door. Fan effing tastic. Well, I gotta say that I am happy to be done with this project. I've been working on it now for probably 2 months in between the other projects. Before we sign off here, I think it's worth mentioning that before taking on this type of project, you do a little mental math. The first 3 suggestions are not all that difficult, but the 4th one, taking apart the mirror and trying to get that piston moving, is really challenging. And you have to weigh that, several hours, 3 hours of your time, versus spending maybe this one cost $112 shipped, and it took me all of 10 minutes to install. So there is a point of diminishing returns on going through the effort. But if you like that kind of challenge, then by all means go for it. I know I enjoyed myself. Anyway, we're done here. We're going to be moving on to the 1954 Chevy pickup truck very soon, and I'm looking forward to that. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. I always appreciate and enjoy your company. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, please do. I release videos on the 1st, the 11th, and the 21st of the month. All right, well, I'm looking forward to the next time. So long for now.